A thread came up the other day in my YouTube videos and like, what are some of your greatest mistakes? And I was like, other than trying to play the guitar sometimes, I have a whole bunch of mistakes. Making mistakes when you're building is part of the process. You don't know what you don't know when you get started. You will totally screw things up. Don't worry about it. That's how one guitar for me turned into 300 guitars to me. Made some mistakes, want to try it again, I want to get it perfect, perfect. I still make mistakes. Still don't line things up properly every once in a while. You know, when you're selling guitars, it becomes a little bit bigger of an issue, and I've had to eat stuff at times, which if you can't do that, that's just part of the process. So I wanted to give you some of my greatest mistakes as a luthier, garage builder, basement builder. I don't know where to start, so let's start with some of the dumb ones I made when I was younger. This was my first telly neck that I made. I built this for my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's now 12. So this was made 12 years ago. My template slipped. As I was routing it, the template moved. Didn't realize that. And so what I did is I came back and filled this with some sawdust and epoxy. So I hit it pretty well, especially from this side. Coloration looks bad. This piece of wood meant a ton to me. This was a piece of wood my grandfather had found, and you know, we all make mistakes, and this was mine. This is one of my sort of earliest mistakes. The mistake was not putting enough double stick tape on the template and not pushing the template down and letting that sort of feel itself out. This neck is pretty cool. It's got a Cocobolo fretboard, koa binding, and then this flame maple neck. But so that's probably my biggest one, is not using enough tape. This one's great. I call this my divorce guitar because as I was building it, I got totally sucked into it. My wife was like, if you don't stop building this, we're not going to be together anymore, essentially. And this guitar sucks. This was a Paul Reed Smith that I had made. I was using Honduran rosewood as the neck, and first mistake was putting the template on wrong. So I've got like a weird Paul Reed Smith backwards looking headstock. I then carved the neck way too far down, so it's so thin, and as you string it up, the neck moves like this. So it's just terrible. I carved the top on my copy carver, and I just didn't sand it far enough. This was some sort of burl top, and I've got a nice bunch of gouges in the control cavity holes here. It looks like garbage. It doesn't play. A couple nice pieces of wood that I ruined, and I tried to do this one as quickly as possible, and it looks like it. It's terrible. It's built horribly. I keep it just as a reminder to take your time, think about things. You know, putting the template on wrong was just stupid. Putting the finish on before I was ready, stupid. So I was trying to get a whole bunch of stuff done, and that's just a dumb mistake. I've thought about cutting off the neck and reusing the body, but I think it's just a better reminder of stupidity in itself. So that's probably my biggest mistake 2. Biggest mistake 3 was taking too long to finish a project. This was a Les Paul I built for my son. I've been playing with the top in terms of aging it, but I started building the guitar, left it outside in the garage, moved it back and forth a little bit, but from when I built it in the winter to when I took it outside in the summer and then brought it back in for the winter, I took too long. I got these massive checks in the finish because the wood expanded and then shrank, expanded and shrank, and the finish was just awful on this guitar. So eventually I'll refinish this for him because it's actually a really nice guitar. It's a Brazilian wood, Brazilian rosewood fretboard that I found on eBay years ago, but these finish checks are just the worst. I've aged it a little bit in terms of playing with it, and the finish has shrank slightly, so I've got the nice nitro cracks. I've tried to get the cracks out by laying lacquer thinner on it, but I'm just sitting on it. But the whole thing was just stupidity. You know, don't take too long when you're working on stuff, and don't leave your shit in the garage when you're finishing it. That was my biggest mistake here. So this actually plays pretty good. It's definitely got the 59 profile. I could probably just leave it. I just don't like the feel of some of these cracks, and it looks terrible. But this was my, I think, second Les Paul. The first Les Paul that I built, I didn't like the coloring, and I sanded off the finish. And I didn't like the coloring on the second time, and I sanded off the finish. Didn't like that on the third, fourth. I think by the fifth time, there was no dome left on the guitar. My dad currently has it in his basement. That was the first Les Paul I had done. It's just awful. Just stupid mistakes that I didn't realize as I'm sanding it down, I'm gonna take out the curve. So that was a pretty funny mistake on my part when I started building Les Pauls. So my first arch top was a pretty big mistake. All in, it looks awesome, but there are a couple of dumb mistakes that I made. One, because I didn't plan it out properly. Probably the biggest was the neck angle. When you are making a carved top, you want the neck angle to match. And I had to use a filler strip here, and the neck didn't sit right at first. So that was just terrible. And then the bridge was sitting way too high. The action was too high, so I've actually sanded this down a couple times. I misdrilled the binding, and it got some dirt in there, and it looks terrible. Let's see, what else on this? Probably that was the biggest one. I mean, this guitar is beautiful, and it sounds awesome. But the playability isn't the greatest because I didn't take the time to plan this angle out. Oh, the other mistake here, which you cannot really see all that well, is I did not set the inlays down far enough. This is something you guys will run into, is when you're doing an inlay, I think the inlays were just slightly thinner, I didn't realize that. And as I set this down against my template, I left it up too high, so as I was radiusing the fretboard, you can see on the corners, I lose a little bit of the inlay because I actually start sanding down the inlay. So this one, I love it. It actually plays okay, but the tone out of this thing is awesome. The top really is carved really nice. It's comfortable, but it just has a couple mistakes. So making mistakes is part of the building process. If you screw something up and ship it out to a customer, give them a full refund, warranty your work. I always do that. If I screw something up, someone's not happy, send it back to me, I'll give you a full refund. Sorry for being an idiot. That's kind of how I run my business. That's how I built it up over the last couple years. Always making sure my customers are happy. I keep some of my projects just because I like sitting on my stuff. And again, I started building guitars for myself. And I think one of the most stressful things is shipping out a guitar to a customer times. Is it perfect? I've gotten so much better over the last couple of years, and actually running through the Jack Daniels guitars as I have, that has really helped sort of perfect my setups, perfected my playability, making sure those guitars are perfect at that price point I'm charging. So we all make mistakes. Some guys will admit it, some guys won't. A lot of guys are bullshitters. They make perfect guitars. Yeah, it's not like that. It's part of the process. It's how you learn how to make better stuff. You will throw out money. That's just the way it is. But that's Sunday Conversation, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.